Welcome to our deep dive into the building regulations. Today, we're getting into what is, honestly, the unsung hero of building safety, Regulation 7. It's the rule that underpins the quality and integrity of every single project. So let's kick things off with a question. We hear a lot about fire safety, about structural integrity, and those are absolutely crucial. But what's the one rule that ensures a building is actually built correctly and not just designed correctly? The answer? Of course, is Regulation 7. You can think of it as the bedrock of the Building Regulations 2010 for England. It makes sure that every other technical requirement, from A to P, is built on a solid foundation of quality materials and proper workmanship. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the foundation of quality, then how to prove your materials are up to snuff, what it takes to ensure quality workmanship, who's responsible for it all, and finally, the ultimate quality check. Okay, first up, let's establish the core legal duty of Regulation 7. This is the absolute foundation, and it applies to all building work, whether it's a massive new build or a small material alteration. It all comes down to two key pillars. And this slide lays it out perfectly. You've got two fundamental parts to Regulation 7. The what you build with, your materials, and the how you build it, your workmanship. You have to get both of these right. It's completely non-negotiable. So here's the actual legal text. But what's really crucial to understand here is just how broad this regulation is. We're talking everything from manufactured components to natural materials like stone and timber, and even the stuff you use for backfilling excavations. So the big question is, how do you actually prove your materials are adequate and proper? Well, the good news is the regulations don't just leave you guessing. There's a really clear hierarchy of evidence, and we're going to walk you through the accepted routes right now. For the huge majority of construction products you'll be using, the main way to prove compliance is through CE marking. And let's be clear, this isn't just a friendly suggestion. It is a legal requirement under the Construction Products Regulation for any product that's covered by a harmonized European standard. But, and this is a really big but, the CE mark by itself is not enough. You absolutely have to consult the product's Declaration of Performance, or DoP. A really common mistake is just seeing the CE mark and moving on. The real due diligence, the part that proves you're compliant, is digging into the data in this document. And this quote from Approved Document 7 just hits the nail on the head. The DoP tells you what the product can do, but it is 100% up to you to confirm that its performance is actually suitable for the specific needs of your project. This is where your professional judgment is key. Okay, so what if there's no CE mark because the product isn't covered by one of those harmonized standards? Don't worry, you're not out of options. You can still prove compliance using other solid methods, like non-harmonized British standards, or maybe a third-party certification from a body accredited by UK's. That's the United Kingdom Accreditation Service, the organization that basically checks the checkers. Now, let's shift gears for a second, because we need to talk about a critical amendment to Regulation 7 that came in back in 2018. This change is all about buildings that are over 18 meters tall. This amendment, Regulation 7.2, puts really strict limits on using combustible materials in the external walls of these taller buildings. This was, of course, a direct response to the Grenfell Tower fire, and it's a massively important point for anyone working on high-rise projects. You'll want to check out Approved Document B for all the specific details. All right, so we've nailed down the rules for materials. Let's move on to that second pillar of Regulation 7, workmanship. How exactly do you prove that your work is being carried out in a workmanlike manner? This isn't just about being neat and tidy. The phrase workmanlike manner has a very specific meaning here. It's all about following established professional practices to make sure that the materials you're using are going to perform exactly as designed and, of course, that they're safe. Honestly, one of the best ways to demonstrate good workmanship is by sticking to recognized standards, like the BS 8000 series. This whole series provides a comprehensive code of practice for all sorts of trades, from masonry to glazing, and it gives you a really clear benchmark for what's considered adequate work on site. Now, on top of following standards, the regulations also mandate 3 specific on-site tests. These are to directly verify the quality of your finished work. And these aren't optional. They're required to prove you're compliant in key areas like sound insulation, airflow, and pressure testing. So, we've gone over the rules for materials and for workmanship. But who's actually on the hook for making sure all this gets done correctly? And how is it enforced on the ground? let's dive into who's accountable and what powers the building control body has. The responsibility for complying with Regulation 7 rests squarely on the shoulders of the professionals doing the work, the agent, designer, builder, or installer. And make no mistake, the building control body has real power here. They can take material samples and run their own tests to verify compliance, which can have pretty serious consequences if things aren't right. Now, there is one key limitation to keep in mind here. This is all about meeting the functional requirements for health, safety, and energy conservation laid out in the regulations. It's not about gold-plating a project or going way beyond the standards just for the sake of it. It's about meeting what's necessary for compliance. Okay, let's bring all this together. If you're going to take away just one thing from this explainer on Regulation 7, this is it. So, to sum it all up, Regulation 7 is the ultimate quality check. It's the thing that turns a design on paper into a physical reality that is safe, sound, and genuinely fit for purpose. It's what makes sure a building actually works. For more videos diving deep into the technical requirements of building regulations, visit the Building Regulations Copilot YouTube channel. And for any building regulations-related queries, head over to buildingregulationscopilot.com. And we'll leave you with a final question to think about for your own projects. Thanks so much for watching.